4 steps were to be taken in the correct order.
Ouais. Beleza.
Vou lá ver se consigo arrumar uma saída, por causa que ia voltar depois para cá.
Tá.
From a technical standpoint, I had zero issues, no lag, no noticeable frame drops, and not a single crash. I can't recall encountering any bugs at all, so credit where it's due, the developers did an outstanding job optimizing this game. Alright, so let's break down how combat works against the enemies we fight. As a battlefield machinist, your main weapon is a powerful javelin, and you've got three primary ways to use it. You can throw it to deal big damage to enemies from a distance, slam it down to hit multiple enemies close by, or strike enemies directly in front of you at close to medium range. Every javelin attack does instant damage and fires additional projectiles based on your equipped technique. But here's the catch. Your javelin builds up heat with each attack. If you attack too frequently, you'll overheat, forcing you to pause until your javelin cools down. If that happens, you've got your fists, which are fast, close-range hits that not only deal damage, but also help lower your heat gauge. So balancing javelin attacks with punches keeps your heat in check and keeps your combo streak alive. Speaking of combos, the more attacks you land quickly, the higher your combo level goes. High combo levels reward you with more keys and more powerful upgrades. We'll talk more about that later. Plus, certain vault items grant you extra bonuses or even increased damage as your combo grows, so we want to keep the combo going as long as possible. Now, some of the enemies require an execution after knocking them down, otherwise they'll get right back up and keep fighting. Take a moment to finish them off, and you'll not only permanently remove them, but also significantly reduce your heat gauge. The main strategy I personally used was to equip a really powerful javelin, push it close to overheating, and then execute an enemy to quickly reset the heat meter. It felt extremely effective and rewarding to pull off. Talking about javelins, at first you start with a basic pea shooter javelin that fires simple projectiles when thrown, slammed, or using close-range strikes, but pretty soon you'll unlock much cooler variants, like the railgun javelin, which creates a small area of effect blast, slowing enemies around it. Another favorite is the cyclone javelin, which can drain enemy health to give you a nice advantage in combat, and these are just a few examples. I managed to unlock 29 unique javelins during my playthrough, and there were still more that I hadn't discovered yet. Since I brought up status effects, enemies can have their own buffs too. The most impactful one I faced was this shock variant, indicated by a lightning bolt next to their light blue health bar. When an enemy has this status effect, you can't use punches, you have to rely entirely on the javelin. There are other status effects in the game, but shock was really the only one that forced me to rethink my approach in combat. So those are the basic mechanics, but what actually happens as you're making your way through the Queen's Bastion? Well, each area you enter has a set number of vaults you need to clear before you can raise the bridge and progress forward. Throughout the game, you'll encounter 4 different loyalists, each representing a unique set of artifacts that affect various gameplay mechanics. First, there's the Spear Sister, whose artifacts revolve around
I need your
javelin,
help,
offering
Sheila.
upgrades like
If
increased
not for
javelin
me,
damage, or a powerful
come to the
artifact
aid of
that
the
heals
family, for Mary and her children. And so Ben's letter ended. His doubts showing, he contemplated his relationship with the warrior, the emotional and single-minded Sheila. Why had they ended? The question still unanswered. Margaret knew full well that signs and symbols were seldom obvious and never direct. She was certain that the cause of the corruption would be difficult to discover.
enemies in when slamming, though it comes with an increased heat cost. Next, you'll have the Bloodletter, whose artifacts primarily boost your health, ranging from simple health upgrades to special bonuses triggered by enemies afflicted with bleed. Then there's the Master Trapper, whose artifacts enhance traps, causing them to deal more damage to enemies, or even dropping clusters of bear traps whenever Clef takes damage. Finally, the Vandals specialize in artifacts affecting your fist combo meter, from tossing explosive paint cans to significantly boosting your punching range and damage. Unfortunately, you don't actually get to use these loyalists in game. They're mainly symbolic representatives of their respective artifact categories. As you do clear out these areas, you'll notice 4 different types of vaults, each marked clearly with symbols corresponding to these loyalist types, indicating which artifacts can be obtained. To clear these vaults, you'll face one of 3 challenge types, the most common being simply defeating all enemies, a no-hit challenge requiring you to clear enemies without taking any damage, and a time challenge where you must defeat all enemies within a set time limit. Thankfully, if you fail a no-hit or time challenge, you're free to retry, so you're never permanently locked out from claiming that artifact. Successfully clearing a vault presents a
got him.
choice of 3 artifacts. Occasionally, vaults will also reward you with a power pouch that lets you upgrade one of your existing artifacts. Typically, each area has more vaults available than required, so you can strategically select which artifacts you want and have a better chance to upgrade them. Personally, I preferred clearing every vault for more artifact choices and upgrade opportunities. Later in the game, you can equip an upgrade that increases your damage output based on the number of unique artifacts you've collected, which is another compelling reason to just expand your artifact collection. Once you've cleared enough areas within the Bastion, you'll encounter a boss fight. These battles start fairly straightforward, but ramp up significantly around the midpoint of the game. After defeating each boss for the first time, your current run immediately ends, and you're returned to your main camp. To beat the game, you have to successfully complete 6 runs, and it took me about 20 attempts before I was able to do so. As you play, you'll quickly notice that there are 2 main currencies in the game, keys and resolve crystals. Keys appear inside containers wrapped in gold chains with a key lock. These are temporary, lasting only for your current run, and you can spend them at shops either to upgrade your existing artifacts or grab temporary buffs. On the other hand, resolve crystals are your permanent upgrade currency. You'll earn these throughout the Queen's Bastion and can only be used after completing a run, either successfully defeating a boss or dying and returning to camp. You can spend resolve crystals to unlock powerful upgrades that Clef can equip to become permanently stronger at the start of each new run. There is a catch though, you can only equip a limited amount of upgrades at once. You only start off with 2, but every time you defeat a new boss and successfully finish a run, you'll unlock another upgrade slot. This was the build I had by the time I completed the game. Now, I'm not claiming this is the absolute best setup, but one tip I strongly recommend is grabbing the Resolve Multiplier upgrade.
Your favorite game is becoming better than ever. Meet the brand
It's
new
propaganda.
Ragnarok Online Prime. Prepare to enjoy the
under the utility section as early as possible. This upgrade boosts how many resolve crystals you earn each run, letting you unlock upgrades much quicker and significantly accelerating your overall progress. And that essentially describes the core gameplay loop. You spend your resolve
Passing
crystals
through,
to permanently
the hero
upgrade
could
Clef,
put weapons
start a
aside
run,
for a
gather
moment.
powerful artifacts to strengthen your build, push forward until you defeat the next boss, or die, and then repeat. So overall, how is Rainbreaker? I generally enjoyed my time with it. As mentioned earlier, it took me just under 8 hours to complete, and for only $9, that's pretty good value. You know, the older I get, the more I appreciate shorter games. I don't think a game needs to be 50 plus hours to justify the price. Quality and enjoyment matters way more to me than sheer playtime. Gameplay-wise, if you're familiar with recent action roguelikes like Hades or Sworn, you'll immediately feel at home. Though Rainbreaker is definitely a smaller, somewhat less diverse experience. The room layouts quickly become familiar, there are only a handful of enemy types, and even though you can spend resolve crystals to increase the chance of certain artifact types appearing with higher rarities, I found myself rarely doing this because they took up upgrade slots and other upgrades simply felt more impactful. As a result, I ended up seeing many of the same artifacts repeatedly, which unfortunately made certain points of the game feel a bit repetitive. One unique challenge you'll run into is timed rooms. When you enter these areas, you'll see a timer in the top right corner, indicating that clearing the room quickly will reward you with a new javelin. These time challenges start off easy enough, but by late game they become incredibly strict, so much so that I often skipped vaults entirely to beat the clock, only to still fall short and lose out on both a new javelin and any skipped artifacts. Thankfully, new javelins can still be found randomly in treasure chests or by defeating bosses, so it's not like time vaults are your only chance to expand your arsenal. One upgrade you can unlock is the ability to equip a second javelin, which sounded cool at first, but unfortunately this upgrade occupies one of your limited upgrade slots, and early on, when you only have 2 slots available, I found it tough to justify choosing something situational over upgrades that consistently improve my effectiveness in every run. This is also true for the Javelin Strike ability upgrade, which again takes a valuable slot. It would have been nicer if these types of upgrades were passive unlocks, allowing you to spend your limited slots on more universally useful skills. On the bright side, Rainbreaker does let you quit mid-run and pick up later exactly where you left off, a feature not every action roguelike offers. Another thing is that after beating the final boss and seeing the credits roll, the game doesn't
The
end.
origin of the
Instead,
threat
it
of
transitions
corruption
into an endless
was what
mode, allowing
occupied
you to keep
most of
challenging
Grandma's time
increasingly
lately.
tougher iterations of the boss indefinitely. There isn't a new game plus, but if you enjoy the core loop, there's plenty of replayability here. In the end, Rainbreaker is a
When
solid,
pressed,
roughly 10-hour experience
Mountain
for around
God
$10. If
was
you
the
already enjoy
only
action
answer
roguelikes,
Grandma
it's
gave.
an easy recommendation. It's not groundbreaking or even necessarily the best in its class, but if you're hungry for more of this genre, it's absolutely worth picking up, especially if you're like me and value actually owning your games, since it's also available on GOG. Personally, I'd give Rainbreaker a solid 7 out of 10. Thanks for checking out my review. Have you played Rainbreaker or are you planning to? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.
There are some things that I really like about Rainbreaker, and because of that, it almost succeeds at being a good game. Almost. But there are some
Ó, o outro review que eu vou ver enquanto jogo. Sei lá, Iratos, pronto.
If you're anything like me, you're excited for Darkest Dungeon 2 releasing in May. As I was dusting off the first one again, I felt the urge to become a being of pure evil. I no longer wanted to be the victim of the Inside Out Mist. I wanted to be the Inside Out Mist. Which led me to the distant relative of the creator, Emeritus. My name's Yuo, and today we see if the Undead Uprising is worth fearing, or if it's just a reskinned Darkest Dungeon clone. Emeritus was developed by Unfrozen and published by Data Analytics. Released on April 23rd, 2020, the game features the player taking control of a particular character, Emeritus. He's on a mission to reach the surface. How does he do that? I'm glad you asked. Players choose which way on the map they want to proceed and work their way up to the final boss of the level. They then move on to the next map, repeat until you reach the final boss of the game. Now you may be thinking to yourself, the gameplay looks similar to Darkest Dungeon, and the map screen is similar to Slay the Spire. And you would be correct. Emeritus wears its inspiration on its sleeve, but does enough to not make it a straight copy. For example, it does not make sense for your spooky monsters to go insane before it's going on. They are the one causing it. So instead, you are the bringer of insanity to the feeble-minded. A special kind of damage called stress, which comes from specific attacks, affects the sanity bar of the targeted unit. Once the bar is depleted or under certain circumstances reaches a threshold, the target goes insane. Once insane, the game assigns them a random debuff, or in some cases a buff, if you're unlucky. Continued stress attacks when the sanity bar is 0 gives you a chance to insta-kill them through a stress-induced heart attack. This mechanic, along with regular damage sources like physical and magic, opens up the gameplay to more experimentation and team building. The roster accommodates players who want to try out different team comps by having
The air vibrated with the pilgrims' chanted prayers, prayers offered to a deity that perhaps slumbered unhearing at the end of their journey. The hero did not know how many of them would survive the coming days.
É estranho esse lugar.
Having 19 playable monsters plus 3 additional ones if you buy the expansion and the supporter pack. The game features 2 different resource systems in combat. Every monster has a strong ability that uses the Wrath resource. Wrath usually regenerates as combat continues. Mana, on the other hand, usually regenerates out of combat, although there are ways around this. Like most games, mana is used on various spells you unlock via a skill tree. Expect to use Wrath abilities far more frequently due to the easier access to the Wrath resource. If you were hoping for something on par with the dark art style of Darkest Dungeon, unfortunately you will be disappointed. While the game has a distinct art style, you have a mixed bag of characters, where some look great and others not so much. Look at Iritus here. He looks like he came straight out of an old Scooby-Doo CD-ROM game. I played the game with more pain and decision to a normal load. By the time I finished the game, I was
I
incentivized to keep playing by unlocking more monsters and more difficulties, but I felt the game was dragging on the 3rd map, and I still had another 2 maps left. None of the bosses or enemies were memorable, and the never-ending cheesy dialogue started waning on me. It's like the devs wanted to take the game in the opposite direction of Darkest Dungeon, making Iritus spout one-liners never-ending, but didn't go far enough to get the player in the mood for it. I started groaning when I would have to hear the same shitty line for the 100th time after using an ability or having someone die. Is this game worth your money? For $40 Canadian, no. As of the making of this video, I can purchase Darkest Dungeon 1 on sale and Darkest Dungeon 2 combined for less than Iritus. If you have played the first Darkest Dungeon and need something to tide you over until the sequel, I would say wait for a deep sale. The game has an interesting concept that could compel someone to finish the game once, but the gameplay, for me at least, did not hold up over one playthrough. If you're interested in playing a game about being the cheesy harbinger of doom, regardless of genre, go play Stubbs the Zombie, Overlord, or Destroy All Humans. You will have more Destroy All Humans for one playthrough. If you're interested in playing a game about being the cheesy harbinger of doom, regardless of genre, go play Stubbs the Zombie, Overlord, or Destroy All Humans. You will have more fun playing those titles over trying to get $40 worth
Overlord.
You will have more fun playing the Zombie, Overlord, or Destroy
Não lembro qual que é
All
Overlord.
Humans. You will have more fun playing those titles.
Review desse depois. O povo fala do Acacholotl. How not to make a roguelite.
The poor herbalist had no valuables, but the goblin's greed had now surpassed gold and jewels.
Achei uma erva pra curar o Marcos.
Shedding tears for the dead man would serve no one now. The herbs needed to be delivered to Mary.
É, curamos o Marcos. Dá pra jogar com ele depois.
Carnage from the Marvel Universe have in common. They can both regenerate body parts, of course. Oh, and they're both in video games. For Carnage, not every one of those games turned out so great. I'm looking at you, Separation Anxiety. But let's see how AK Oxalotl has turned out. And you know, Oxalotls may look like babies the entire duration of their lives, but don't let the babies in the echo chamber bully you with clickbait content and toxic scored reviews. Head over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames to gain Discord access, exclusive shows and live streams, and so much more. Your community is waiting. AK Oxalotl. It's a top-down action roguelite. Stop me if you heard that one before. But wait, there's a twist here. Here you're able to play as an axolotl with a gun. The title probably gave that away, didn't it? If you aren't familiar with these adorable amphibians, they grow up in the water and live exclusively in Mexico City, but I don't recall them having guns. Until now, that is. Thank you, video games. Axolotls are living peacefully on a small planet when suddenly evil forces snatch up a small family, leaving only one pissed-off axolotl with an AK. You guessed it, that's where you come in. There really isn't much more to the narrative here. You set out to reclaim your family and nurse them to health, and that's about it. Being a game with rogue elements, AK Oxalotl is going to be run-based, and that means playing the same areas over and over and over and over and over again. You get the point. Same enemies, same bosses, same level backdrops for a long time. I know these games have randomly generated levels, and that's no different here, but still. Rogue fans are here for it. Some of you despise this style of gameplay. Either way, I wanted to get this fair warning out of the way early, so be warned that this game will not change your mind if you don't enjoy this genre to begin with. With that said, AK Oxalotl, God, I'm gonna cry by the end of this review, does make many attempts to keep each run pretty fresh, with a good deal of success. You begin by selecting between two different gameplay modes, which you can definitely appreciate in a rogue game.
I caught him.
Oxalotl mode will put up a fierce challenge and is as the development team intended players to experience the game. The Axolotl mode, however, is a less challenging option where you'll have more health, receive additional health drops, and dish out increased damage. The Axolotl mode is not a total cakewalk and a great way for those who are intimidated by roguelike games to ease into things. I certainly made use of it a few times myself, as you can switch over whenever you wish throughout gameplay. Movement is on the left stick and shooting's on the right stick. One interesting feature with this game is the ability to walk right over bushes, garbage cans, rocks, and all sorts of environmental objects. This allows players to discover ingredients for cooking or find doraditos, which is the in-game currency used to shop with. I almost wish they came in nacho and Cool Ranch flavors, but that might be a little too on the nose. Your first Oxalotl comes equipped with a stack ability, but as you progress, you can equip and control new critters with their own set of skills, which adds to the customization options. You'll hold two weapons at a time, with shooting being performed via the right trigger. Unsurprisingly, aiming is executed with the right stick. This is a formula most of you will feel familiar with, I'm sure, but the mechanics are pretty damn good. Whether I needed to use the left bumper to gouge enemy fire, or I was blasting down foes while carefully weaving between bullet hell madness, the controls felt tight and never let me down. Most mistakes were entirely mine to own. Of course, the success will depend upon how good your reflexes are. Your goal in the game is to go room by room, clearing out creepy crawlies like caterpillars and other insects, and even the occasional raccoon with a gun of its own. The game certainly has a sense of humor, that's for certain. As you clear each area of enemies, you'll typically be rewarded with a chest. Here you can choose between 3 different power-ups, like a normal bag that might contain something nice, a veggie which will increase health, or black goo that leaves a sticky trail for your foes. This is just a few examples. Clearing out an area will leave a fork in the road, meaning you'll need to pick between a few different doors, which are discreetly labeled to give you a bit of an idea of what might await you ahead. A gun door will lead to a weapon, or a cute little axolotl head could lead to an adorable baby that you can nurse back to health and raise to adulthood. There is a bit of strategy involved with picking which door you want to enter, which I really enjoyed. For health, you'll want a door labeled with a hospital symbol. Want a new gun? Follow the gun symbol. Just as you would expect, each world is broken up into a set amount of rooms, culminating in a boss battle. Defeating this often difficult boss means moving forward, while death means back to the hub. Side note, I never want to fight the first crab boss again, but I'll undoubtedly have to. And speaking of the hub world, it is perhaps the most fascinating part of Axolotl, because it is ever-changing with each failed run. Yes, indeed, you are rewarded for your many failures. I loved how numerous shops and gameplay elements would open up. For example, Jogando, an item shop where you can spend crystals for new perks eventually appears. A weapon shop will materialize. Upgrade stations, and even more that I won't spoil here. But perhaps the most interesting element is the adorable little farm where the axolotls you collect gather together. Here they can be nurse the health through a mini game which involves cleaning them. You can also feed them.
Grandma
using
arrived in
ingredients.
time to reveal the contents of the tablet. The secrets of Rhea are in the hearts of the stones, and for those whose weapons guard the creatures of the wild, there are new arts of war to be learned.
Found through each run and eventually raise them all the way up to adulthood. Doing so will allow you to play as one of these new axolotls once they've grown up, and there are a ton of these cute little friends to unlock which could potentially keep you busy for a long time. I am glossing over some of the unlockables of this game as well as some of the equipable items, not to be lazy, but so as to preserve fun surprises for you, which there are many. I didn't even touch on the new weapons you unlock or the new room types, so as you can tell, there is more than meets the eye. However, the reality is there's no escaping the trappings of this genre. And for me, even with all the cool unlockables, I just didn't love fighting the same crab boss and blasting the same enemies ad nauseum. That's a problem for me and won't apply to everyone, but I feel like many indie gaming fans will feel the same way I did. Burnt out after
Adam writes about how he and the gang found more than they set out to find.
Some fresh ideas, it still ultimately suffers from the pitfalls of the roguelike genre. It's just not as fresh as it once was. For me, this will be a game I come back to every now and then, as opposed to making it an obsession. The visuals in AK Axolotl are very cute, but pretty standard pixel art. The enemy designs consist mostly of adorable fuzzy animals that fit well with the game's theme. Some of the backgrounds get repetitive due to the nature of the game, but mostly look nice. Your standard forest area, snow level, and other outdoor settings all make an appearance and are quite colorful. The axolotls themselves are really stinking cute, and the animations aren't too shabby either. In the end, I'm a sucker for pixel art, so I like the look of this one. The nice pixels are accompanied by a hard rock soundtrack that's pretty solid, albeit not all that original. Chugging guitar riffs and hard-hitting drums are common throughout your adventure, with all of the explosive sound effects plays great that way. Doses. For me, Axolotl rock soundtrack that's pretty solid, albeit not all that original.
É impossível fazer coisas totalmente original com frequência.
Sound effects and excruciating cries of death working effectively. All told, the game looks and sounds pretty good. While AK Axolotl is still a roguelite at the end of the day, you can't say it doesn't try to freshen things up. I looked forward to unlocking more and more in my hub world, along with discovering new axolotls. I also loved how the difficulty options allowed for me to advance through what is often a frustrating grindfest. Sure, I got bored of seeing the same bosses and levels time and time again, but I still really enjoyed this one in small doses. For me, this is a perfect handheld game, and with flawless Steam Deck support at 60 FPS, I could see it as something I dip into every now and then to slowly progress.
É verdade, legal pra jogar em Steam Deck isso aqui.
Completely in love with this genre and enjoy many of the games within it. There's a good chance you'll like this one too.
Tá. Eu só tô vendo review de coisa que eu já tenho. Pra lembrar. Atlas Falling, Bloodshed. O Atlas, vamos ver na sequência, vai. Eu queria fazer reviews, pensando em começar a fazer review em vez de ficar gravando vídeo. Before you buy.
Hey, and we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight
Já
up
dei like?
gameplay
Já.
footage and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. And today we're talking about Atlas Fallen. This is a new action hack and slash semi-open adventure from developers Debt 13. The creators of the game that we
Hack and Slash é um dos melhores estilos, cara.
Surge, remember that? This is completely different for them. It's big vistas, otherworldly gods, sand superpowers, and hard-hitting combat. This game does kind of feel like a throwback to the 2000s and 2010s in a lot of ways. You know, big, high concept, silly fantasy, big, chunky, beefy armor characters, but unfortunately, it just feels like it'll fall a bit short for some people. It has some really, really, truly good aspects, but there's a lot more that it lacks. It's like almost there. It's kind of generic and flawed, but I think it's gonna find an audience with some players. Hell, I mean, I was wrong about a lot of other games that seemed generic back in the day, like Kingdoms of Amalur or Two Worlds, and a bunch of people still ended up playing that. Still, this one falls a bit short, but there's still a lot worth talking about. So, just so you know, the usual housekeeping, we've been playing a review copy, and this footage was captured on PlayStation 5 in performance frame rate mode. There's also a quality mode. And don't worry, this video is spoiler-free, so you're good. So, Atlas Fallen takes place in this fantasy world where there's like a ruling class, there's a god war, and the regular people are like an unnamed slaves or serfs. And you, just some random unknown man or woman that you create in a character creator, end up getting your hands on a magic sand gauntlet, giving you the power to fight back and help the people. Also, the gauntlet kind of talks, so take that for what you will. The intro itself is pretty dull. It tosses you right into just conversing with random nameless NPCs, but once you're out there and the main combat loop begins, that's where some of the fun lies. So I am going to start with the best aspect of the game, the combat. So you have attacks with one weapon tied to one button, like say square, and your other weapon on triangle if you're on controller. Different weapons have different use cases and strength and speed.
E os monstros são legais desse jogo também. O Atlas Fallen.
Hold for longer, heavy charged attacks depending on, you know, which you have. You also have an upward hit to get in the air, as well as a downward hit to bring enemies down sometimes. So you're kind of comboing while also using a dash dodge and a kind of parry. It's like a protect button you tap at the right time before attacks, and it deflects the attack. And oftentimes,
the creature that now threatened the hero was a crudely focused inferno of hatred and malice.
Ai, ai.
If one raging beast was not enough, then surely two were. Letting out a final rasping breath, the second beast became motionless. The poor creatures, twisted by the corruption, were finally able to rest.
Seconds, making them more vulnerable. Bigger enemies, you have to like deflect a few times in a row before you freeze them, and with the right timing, that can feel pretty cool to pull off. Then you're also building up your momentum meter, this big meter on the bottom left. Every time
a path to be cleared of the corruption and the jewel of life to be restored, the realm of Anea Daya, mother of beasts and the goddess of waters. Before embarking for the spirit halls, however, the family must be informed of the newly opened passage.
Healing strike, big heavy AoE attacks, and a bunch more. And for larger enemies, you're also targeting different body parts to destroy first to sometimes...
The goblin siblings lay dead, and the pilgrims were now safer in their caves. But the last step remained to be taken. The warriors knew only that somewhere in the expanse of the caves was the ancient halls of the spirit who would reveal new truths to them. Mark was out of the woods now. His fever gone, he was almost up and about. "Welcome back, brother," said Kevin. He had avoided conflict over the years, living in harmony with nature, but his Uncle Ben was fond of saying, a Bergson would forget how to walk before they forget how to fight.
Bonito. Isso aqui é muito bonitinho.
Whenever he could find time, Mark was reading about herbs and salves, his interest in medicine inherited from his grandmother.
The first guest to be summoned, Anaidia, was to be found in the darkest depths of the Keldipo caves. For a spirit to leave her domain, though, was no simple task.
Ah, tá.
A table fit for the gods, but a game made for mortals. A hand was to be placed upon the pedestal, and their best was to be given.
GG. Ele corre estranho. Também se reduzido, mas a baixa de defesa vai já era. Tá. Marque ataque com chicote. Que isso? Ah, também tá ligando. Vamos aproveitar, vou pra cozinha. Oi, mãe. Alô? Ah, sei lá, só se for pegar aquele salgado lá. Ah. Ando como Mark. É, não tem porquê eu. Esse chicote dele é mó bom. Ai, ai. Esse bicho faz assim. Miau. É perigosinho, velho.
Net bigger rewards after the battle. A lot of that stuff is pretty fun. You know, as the enemies get a bit crazier a few hours in, it starts to shine. It feels good to smash enemies in the face with like a charged giant sand fist, or a big axe, or pull in aerial enemies with like a sand spear, all while you're zipping around, strafing on the sand, trying not to die quick, and saving a big momentum finisher or the finisher shatter attack for the last big hit. You can also stay in the air for quite a while. You know, some decent aerial.
Lucy was barely containing her excitement as Margaret continued to train her patiently. When will be the time? When? She kept asking. To the excitable and talented child, few chores were as boring as practice. But the fire child still needed more. A temporary reprieve offered by the gods, and a prize waiting.
Foi. Nossa. Esse cara precisa de regeneração, cara. Não, 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 não. Aqui é tipo o começo.
Grandma was already there, as always, before the Bergson could have a look around. Those who approach the light will gain more valuable experiences, was how the tablet was explained.
Cara, o chicote dele é o poder, velho. Um bicho chato. Precisa muito de regeneração de vida esse cara.
Bergson's hair stood on end from the ominous sounds of the unholy ritual. Whatever it was, it would not be a happy affair.
Voltar.
Had they only been quicker.
Vixe. Deu bom.
A creature of inanimate stone, given life by the power of the mountain god and presented to the mother of beasts. Grandma knew they needed to get past it to get to Aeneadaya's halls to discover more about the connection between the god and the corruption. Welcome, friend, the shopkeep greeted. Don't mind the occasional bloodstain on the merchandise.
Tô sem nada pra usar. Oh, caramba, isso aqui era pra estar no carregador. Beleza. Isso aqui vem pro canto. Isso aqui vem pro colo.
Attacks as well. It's generous with the air dash stuff as you unlock it. Now, as someone who loves combat action games and brawlers, especially Devil May Cry, it's nice to play a game that shakes things up in creative new ways, even if it's kind of simple. Kicking a giant crab's ass can be fun in this game. Unfortunately, I know I mentioned Devil May Cry. This, unfortunately, is nowhere near as precise as combat games of that caliber. It can just feel overall imprecise at times. Hits you think land sometimes don't have that connect. There's just like a general weird inconsistency. The camera can also absolutely screw you over and flip around all the time to some really bad angles. It's sometimes like it seems like it's trying to help during mid-battle shifts, but it tends to just get annoying. I'm surprised even in an open area desert sometimes with nothing else around me but me and an enemy, the camera can still get screwed up. That and fighting with the lock-on system that just doesn't seem to always do what you want it to do can be a bit frustrating. It's almost like it really is a throwback to the early 2000s or 2010s. Now, I think the telltale sign of these specific flaws is like when I'm deep in the game, I'm well versed with the combat at this point. I'm actually pretty good at it, but I only die from bosses or big enemies Not because the boss is kicking my ass, like I got those timings down right, but it's because he summons flying minions that are easy, technically, but
Que
getting
play
my character
Valorant.
to hit
Valorant
them
é tão
instead
ruim,
of the
cara.
boss and dealing with the lock-on and the broken camera at the same time just feels really finicky, and in those crucial seconds I can get whacked. Now, I'm actually surprised at points with how rough the camera and the lock-on combo is, considering the game is all about combat. This is a frustrating mix, but it says a lot about the simple good hack and slashiness of the combat that I still managed to have some fun despite it. The bigger problem is that everything else in the game just isn't very exciting. The story, frankly, just doesn't do it for me. They built a world with like a bunch of lore and self-serious characters with journal entries and motivations, but none of it lands because none of the characters are very memorable. They all look like they were just made in the character creator you built your character with, and none of them stand out visually or in the dialogue, except for like a few weird side quest characters. The same goes for your character, who is just guy or lady. I was happy to at least cover him up in some cool armor, like a kind of like made him like a weird Destiny-looking kind of ancient desert taskmaster. I don't know. Really, a lot of the story boils down to you gaining more power and upgrading your gauntlet to save the world, or really just to get to the next area. And a lot of go here, do that type of stuff, which is fine because I just want to get to the killing, but there's a lot of story and dialogue here. Lots of chatty vendors, side quests, smaller side quests called favors. All of them have something to say about this world and these civilizations and the gods they're trying to defeat. I appreciate the work put into it, but just none of it grabbed me at all. Now,
Summoners in a circle. Surely nothing would come from it.
You know, not a lot is going to grip. A lot of barren emptiness, which is fine because you're just
Tô
around
morrendo.
in the sand like a cool surfing magic
Não!
which I
Morri.
do love. But a lot of it just kind of feels like an old school style RPG area where it's barren, there's a lot of pop-in, and you just see a random enemy like a scorpion wandering around. You walk up to it and you kill it, and then you just keep wandering around until you find a town. And nothing
Lucy
really
was
too compelling
trying to
and
convince
except
Grandma
for a couple
that she
of
could
spots.
face
You
the
know, there's
corruption
some
on
clever
her
hidden
own,
things here and there,
despite having
and some nice
doubts
little
herself.
platforming sections to get more stuff that I did kind of enjoy, but
She might be able to persuade Margaret, but Mary was another story. Grandma would say, trust the children and convince Mary. But Lucy knew that her mother would still worry. Everybody was worried about Aneadaya's stone sentinel that they would probably have to face on their quest. Can fire even harm stone? Lucy asked intently. Kevin was having similar thoughts about the alloy Uncle Ben had used to forge his daggers.
Faz sentido. Opa, um dos melhores upgrades aqui, hein? Experiência. Pena que é caro.
Dizzy, nauseated, feverish. The Bergsons' mind unsettled from the incremental rise of the corruption. No longer were even they immune to its ill effects.
Vai querer minha arma e distintivo também?
The time had come at last. She could finally fight real enemies, afraid but excited. The younger daughter of the Bergsons wondered if she would pass this test.
No massacre, floresço, como uma flor no amanhecer.
It wasn't.
Ela vai comigo, será? Acho que é isso mesmo. É. Esses caras que ficam quitando da seleção é muito chato, velho. Oi.
Não dá pra pegar as coisas?
Ixi. Estou indo. Péssima hora. Ovo.
What are you thinking? Let's talk down in the comments. But if this helped you at all, just our opinion or showing some gameplay on screen, if it helped steer you in any way, clicking a like button's all you gotta do to help us out. We would appreciate
É, o
it.
pouco que eu joguei esse jogo eu achei legal também. Nada impressionante, assim, mas é legal, sim. Tá, próximo. Aliens Dark Descent. Não, peraí, não era o Aliens. Era o Bloodshed. Isso aqui, talvez.
So basically, Bloodshed is like a roguelike mashup between old-school Doom-style shooters and games like the very popular Vampire Survivors. Their developers sent me a key, so I checked it out. The core gameplay in this is pretty straightforward. You select from different missions and choose from various characters, and then your goal is basically to survive for a set amount of time, 20 minutes in this example right here, while fighting off massive waves of enemies. The interesting part is that your
One
guns can
held
fire
a
simply when
gift.
you aim at enemies.
Two
This
hid
is similar
ferocious
to how Vampire
creatures.
Survivors
It
work,
was the
but you still
lady or
control
the
where you're
tiger
looking and
or the
moving.
Bergson.
Now I turned this option off because I preferred the manual shooting. It just gave me a better feeling of being in control. As you kill enemies, they drop experience gems and coins, as well as chests from the bigger enemies or mini bosses. The experience lets you level up during your run to get stronger weapons and abilities, as well as upgrading your existing abilities. The coins you collect are your meta progression currency. When you die, you keep these and can use them to buy permanent upgrades back at your base. That, for example, permanently increase your dealt damage or health. When completing missions, you also keep unlocking new characters and items that will then be added to your collection. The maps so far seem pretty open, more open than I expected actually. Occasionally you come across these pillars that you can shoot. That can help out your survival tremendously. Sometimes you get coins or sometimes you get some health. That really is very valuable, because there is of course no automatic health regeneration. You can of course find different weapons like shotguns and switch between them. I personally found the gunplay to be satisfying, especially the shotgun. But so far, if I recall this correctly, when it comes to the actual upgrades, I have only found percentage increases or decreases to how it performs. These are noticeable, but maybe they can add some more interesting things to really give you that feeling of power. So to match the increasing difficulty of the enemies, give us some really powerful upgrades, like make it shoot bullets that have effects on them, like explosions or lightning, an option to use 2 shotguns at once, and so on. So I'm curious to see some builds where we feel insanely powerful, but still have a challenge because of the difficulty. When it comes to the music, I found it very fitting and atmospheric. That's pretty much what Bloodshed is, a retro-styled FPS. And that sentence concludes today's video. If your time was respected, a like or comment
said
is very
Lucy
much
when she met
appreciated.
Grandma. Margaret's proud smile signaled the end of Lucy's training. She now had to return home to tell her mother, and hopefully put some of her worries to rest.
Nossa, 20 minutos praticamente. Ok, já vem Bloodshed. Borderlands 2. Ué, Borderlands 2 é meio que autoexplicativo, né?
Salve, meus queridos. Hoje conhecendo Bloody.
So, you want to hear another story, huh?
Borderlands 2 came out over a decade ago, but here we are in 2025, and people are still talking about it. The real question is, should you play it today? With so
The
many new
gods
games, new
offered
issues,
this,
more
the
Borderlands
hardships
games, and
at
even some more
least.
Borderlands content on the horizon, does this classic still hold up? Let's break it down. Gameplay, story, graphics, and whether you'll actually find people to play with. Stick around, and by the end of this video, you'll know if Borderlands 2 is worth your time in 2025. First off, let's talk gameplay. Borderlands 2 is an over-the-top FPS with RPG elements, insane loot variety, and some of the most chaotic co-op action you'll ever experience. The combat still feels
É,
great
deve ser
even
legal
in
co-op, né?
2025. The gunplay is tight, the variety of weapons keeping things fresh, and skill trees let you build your character exactly how you want.
Handsome Jack.
And then there's the story. Handsome Jack is one of the best gaming villains of all time. The humour as well.
Shoot me in the face! In the face! Do it! Shoot me in the face! Face, 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 face! Now! Bullets in the face!
mostly great depending on your taste, and the world of Pandora is wild as ever. Some jokes might feel a bit outdated now,
Stairs? No!
but the story and world building still hold up surprisingly well. And let's not forget the DLCs. Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, Captain Scarlet's Pirate Adventure. This game has some of the best expansions in any looter shooter. Alright, let's talk graphics. Borderlands 2 uses that signature cel-shaded art style, which has aged way better than most games from its time. It runs smoothly on pretty much anything these days. PC, next-gen consoles, and it even runs on the Switch. And if you're on PC, there are mods and setting tweaks that make the game look even better. So if you're worried about it looking outdated, don't be. It still looks great and plays well. Borderlands 2 is best enjoyed with friends, but can you still find people to play with in 2025? Good news, there's still an active player base, especially on PC. Finding co-op partners might take a little bit of effort these days, but Discord servers and Reddit groups keep the multiplayer alive. And if you're having a friend over, couch co-op is still a blast, something that a lot of modern games are missing nowadays. So how does it compare to newer games like Borderlands 3 or Tiny Tina's Wonderlands? Well, Borderlands 3 has better movement, more guns, and some quality of life improvements, but the story, yeah, doesn't quite hit like Borderlands 2. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a great spin-off with more of a fantasy twist on the formula, rather than a direct replacement. It's still pretty good, you know, it's probably a game you should probably check out, but like Borderlands 2 is one of those classic games that you want to be coming back to and playing again and again and again. Borderlands 2 still stands out because of its charm, its loot system and its unforgettable characters. Even compared to some newer looter shooters like Destiny 2 or The Division, Borderlands 2 offline play and co-op focus makes it a quick pick for casuals and hardcore gamers alike. So should you play Borderlands 2 in 2025? If you love looter shooters, great co-op gameplay and don't like some slightly aged mechanics, then absolutely. It's cheap, packed with content and still one of the best games in its genre. Whether you're revisiting Pandora or jumping in for the first time, it's definitely worth your time. So let me know in the comments, are you still playing Borderlands 2 in 2025? And if not, what's your go-to looter shooter? Drop a like if this video helped and subscribe for more gaming content. See you next time, Bolt Hunters.
Eu ia procurar, né? Best Loot and Shooter.
Welcome to Order Hub, the #1 gaming workspace for coaches, boosters, and Sherpas. We help high-skill gamers like you turn your passion into a full-time job. So, what is Order Hub? Order Hub connects pro players with real clients.
I played 7 Destiny clones to find out if any of them were worth your time. The games I chose were either heavily labeled as Destiny killers by the Destiny community, or were labeled as looter shooters on the Steam page. First up is Outriders, a third-person looter shooter that has definitely taken some inspiration from Destiny.
Remember, I think this is like the big knight guy. Whoa, we even get a cutscene. Look at us, dude. Bro, this literally, like, come on, dude. It's the Dark Blade. Come on. All right, mark him. Twisted rounds. Go behind him. Ooh! Put into perspective, the build crafting in this game, you can make builds so busted you can like one-tap bosses. It's kind of stupid. All right, let's start a new character. This is kind of nice. I don't remember them giving you this option. You can start at the prologue, main story, or in the DLC. Let's do, since I just haven't made a Devastator, it's like the one character I didn't make. We'll do Devastator. Dude, I just remember last time we played this, Clyde had a Devastator build where like he was using that ability and he was hitting, I think it was literally like 1 billion damage. Mr. Chang! I would love some hot tea, Mr. Chang. No! No! Oh my god! Wait, that was kind of sick. I think I remember like what the first main boss is. I just don't remember how long it takes to get there.
É, o problema é que se eu for ver os best looter shooter, eu teria que olhar. Então eu vou pôr outros reviews Death Star.
If Death's Door were applying for the role of an essential top-down action adventure, it would have quite an impressive resume, with its Zelda-like exploration and dungeon puzzles, engaging fast-paced combat, and levels that are brimming with irresistible secrets. All of this is wrapped up in a world that definitely walks the line between somber and charming. Its varied yet muted areas are full of quiet melancholy, creating a sense of wonder and mystery that proves hard to resist uncovering every last hidden path on your way to reap some souls. The premise for Death's Door is straightforward yet intriguing. Get to work for the Reaping Commission by harvesting the giant soul of a monster unwilling to submit to the mortal coil. However, after the soul is unexpectedly stolen from you, your path leads to a hauntingly beautiful undying realm that holds the titular Death's Door. To open it, you'll need to search the lands for 3 powerful souls in need of a good reaping, by way of some entertaining and challenging
Breaking
boss
the
fights.
circle would
Exploring
prevent
these forgotten
the
lands is a
summoning.
treat. I track my quarry through forbidden graveyards, old flooded ruins, and creepy mansions. Puzzles are plentiful, and while most plan familiar themes of hitting switches, collecting keys, and opening gates, they were all slightly varied and progressively challenging enough to never overstay their welcome. Death's Door makes smart use of its terrain to guide your progression, whether requiring you to crisscross through areas to activate checkpoints, or using layered walkways to give new perspective to solving puzzles and uncovering mysteries. And plenty of mysteries there are, because Death's Door crams secret pathways into every region. There might not be an overwhelming variety of rewards to find, but the lure of exploration is so omnipresent it was hard for me not to stray from the main path to see what I was missing. Even after my 10-hour adventure was over, an even bigger enigma completely held my attention until I'd exposed everything it had to offer. When not lighting torches and activating platforms, my little Reaper Crow was up to his beak in enemies to slice and dice through. Combat in Death's Door is as decisive as it is quick. Opponents are rarely slowed by most attacks, which means combat involves figuring out how aggressive you can be before things get painful. Death's Door may rely a lot on throwing waves of enemies at you to slow you down, but it's thanks to the aggressive and rapid pace of these fights, and a smattering of varied weapons to collect and swap between, that I never got tired of looking forward to the next gauntlet. Added to the mix are a few magic abilities you unlock in each dungeon, which are part puzzle-solving tool and part weapon. While you only get a few limited uses in either application, recharging your magic is as simple as whacking anyone or any destructible object nearby. This made for fun and engaging combat where I can intersperse quick magic attacks between melee strikes if I time things well.
Oi. Pode jogar aqui, ó.
Cadê a calça que você vai levar?
Ué, você que foi ela a última vez. Ah, então tá aí. Ah, eu não sei, vira e mexe tem.
Aqui, ó. Vou colar a calça na unha.
Tá bom. Beleza.
Uma hora eu vou fazer.
Tá.
Lá da mãe pra comprar. Ó, tua calça tá indo. Eu não tesoura, uma coisa, eu vou cortar a etiqueta, tá?
Eu corto lá, qualquer coisa.
Essa camiseta que você vai levar?
Deixa eu ver. Não, eu já levei uma. Essa vai ficar aqui.
Welcome to my review of Dungeon Defenders 2, a popular tower defense game that combines action and strategy in a vibrant fantasy world. If you're a fan of the original Dungeon Defenders game or just love tower defense games in general, then this sequel is definitely worth your time. Let's see if Dungeon Defenders 2 has what it takes to become your new favorite tower defense game. Firstly, one of the standout features of this game is its cooperative gameplay. You can team up with up to 3 other players to defend your towers and defeat enemies. This makes the game a lot more fun to play with friends or other players. Another cool feature is the variety of characters and towers available. Each character has their own unique abilities, and there are a lot of different tower, traps, and magical abilities to choose from. This allows for a lot of customization in your playstyle and strategies. The loot and progression system is also worth mentioning. As you progress through the game, you collect loot that can be used to upgrade your towers and characters, unlocking new abilities and making them more powerful. This adds an extra layer of excitement and motivation to keep playing. Dungeon Defenders 2 offers several different game modes, including a campaign mode, survival mode, and various challenges. Each mode offers a unique experience and adds to the game's replayability. Plus, the game supports cross-platform play, so you can team up with players on different platforms, including PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. Finally, the game features dynamic weather and a day/night cycle, which adds
Rhea's
an
mercy
extra layer
can
of
make the
immersion to the
impossible
gameplay experience.
possible,
Small touch, but
is
it really
all
makes the
Margaret
game world
whispered.
feel more alive and dynamic. Overall, Dungeon Defenders 2 offers a lot of depth and variety, making it an engaging and enjoyable tower defense game that is sure to keep you entertained for hours. There are 18 characters in Dungeon Defenders 2. Here they are, divided by their respective classes: the Squire, Apprentice, Huntress, Monk, Lavamancer, Abyss Lord, Serious EV2, Gunwitch, Mystic, Dryad, Barbarian, Initiate, Adept, Mystic. Each character has their own strengths, weaknesses, and unique abilities, allowing for a lot of variety in gameplay and strategy. Anyways guys, that is it for today's review.
Aí eu aqui. Ok. Gestalt.
As someone who grew up during the heyday of 16 to 32-bit games, I couldn't help but become enamored with 2D action platformers. Castlevania Symphony of the Night was a monumental title when it released in 1997, and to this day many games try to emulate its success. In a sense, Symphony of the Night became the grandfather of the Metroidvania genre. Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder is the latest to try to bottle some of that magic, but it also takes inspiration from other games of the era while offering a steampunk aesthetic, which has taken on a life of its own over the last few decades. But is Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder a steaming pile of crap, or is it a real Cinderella story? Let's find out in our full review. Real quick, why don't you light our fire by liking and subscribing, heading over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames where you can gain Discord access and more, or hanging out with Gamer Ghoulfriend now Tuesdays and Thursdays right here or on twitch.tv/idreamofindiegames. Your new indie gaming community is waiting for you. In Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder, the heavens are quite literally torn down the middle. This event comes to be known as the Calamity. I swear I've heard that somewhere before. Comment below if you know where, because I'm old and I forget things. Anyways, this opened up a portal into the dark abyss, setting free all manners of demons and putting humanity at risk even further. But the humans did what humans usually do and found it within themselves to fight back, claiming the power of the abyss. Unfortunately, such a power comes at a cost, turning many of the weaker humans into demons themselves. Years go by and the Vanguard, a group of warriors, are ready to put an end to this threat once and for all. From here we are introduced to our protagonist, Alethea, a fiery red-haired hero tasked with doing a lot of dirty work that gets caught up in a greater conspiracy, which becomes a sticky web of plotlines that goes completely off the rails from there. Characters are introduced at a rapid-fire pace in what feels like an attempt by the writers to cram in as much story as they can in a rather brief campaign that clocks in at a meager 7 hours without the side quests. Tack on maybe 3 more if you want to go do those. The game wants to tell a grandiose story and shoves a seemingly endless stream of dialogue down the player's throat. Unfortunately, this dialogue was in desperate need of an editor or translator, as it's riddled with spelling errors, typos, and general nonsense. Regarding the gameplay, Gestalt's Demon Cinder feels like a combination of Symphony of the Night and has some of the platforming elements of the Mega Man X series. You'll slash at foes with your sword, rebound off of walls, air dash, and eventually double jump your way through Metroidvania-like labyrinths. The game also features a leveling system, as you'll gain experience by mowing down your foes. Adding a bit of a twist is Alethia's gun, which is powered by gathering energy from foes or from mechanical vials strewn about the map. The more you attack, the more energy you'll build up. Some mechanics with the gun are pretty cool later on in the game, like the ability to charge it up and break down certain enemies' armors. As you level up, there is a skill tree where you can unlock even more abilities and become powerful. The skill tree is somewhat open, but still somehow felt like it followed a linear path. To be honest, due to the relatively short runtime of the game, I didn't find it necessary to really branch out from the path I was on, since I basically unlocked everything by the end of my playthrough anyways. Some of the abilities are cool and will even add additional combos, but the combat never becomes as thrilling as it could because the enemy AI is completely brain dead. It's some of the worst AI I've encountered in a while. You can easily manipulate them into beatable patterns that don't really require any of the skills you've unlocked. Occasionally, there is an enemy that you have to use the gun on, but that's about it. A simple swing and a roll is easily enough to outwit the majority of the enemies in the game. You'll also have healing and other potions, plenty of them, which takes out a fair bit of the sense of danger and urgency, even going into the boss battles. The bosses could best be described as simplistic Mega Man encounters with mechanical movement patterns that are quite easy to master. These bosses are about as bright as a movie theater, and that's being generous. Because of this, death is a rarity, typically attributed to cheap wall spikes or an oversight on my part. I think a few of my deaths arose from sheer boredom, as the dull combat took the fight right out of me. So while that combat is a bit dull, the platforming is actually one of the stronger elements of the game. Wall jumping feels quite good, as does air dashing. The game controls well, with precise movements, and some of the maps are quite enjoyable to explore. There are secrets to uncover scattered across the various locations that include various upgrade points and treasures, and there's even a main town hub of sorts where you can pick up optional bounty quests and even purchase some items. Later into gameplay, a fast travel system is eventually unlocked that helps a little bit with backtracking, and in the meantime there are a good number of save points, though sometimes in the early game they felt a little bit further apart than I would have preferred. One of the weakest aspects of Gestalt's Demon Cinder would be its built-in map, which, not to be funny, looks like it was designed in MS Paint. It's never as easy as it should be to find your next location. The legend isn't all that helpful either, and as fun and wonderful as this game's visuals are, the map serves as a stark contrast. There is a built-in journal that does a halfway decent job of at least outlining your quests, but overall the menu designs don't hold a candle to the in-game presentation, which is exceptional. The animations in this title impress right from the get-go. You'll take in Alethia's flowing locks, there's creative locations full of cogs and other steampunk stuff, the enemies look straight out of Mad Max, and the portrait art is really well done, though these portrait arts could have used a few more expressions to liven things up. Even still, the lighting and atmosphere of the game are top-notch. Whether you're in an ember red construction zone or a deep purple scrapyard, the pixel art is just jaw-dropping. And it's the soundtrack that steals the show here. It is every bit as grandiose as the game's storytelling wishes it were. It has an industrial symphonic sound to it that booms with bass and is punctuated with mechanical percussion. There is a bit of a western steel guitar flair to it at times, while other moments showcase more of a classical sound with strings. Sound effects are great too, with hard-hitting slashes and clings against metal shining through the soundtrack. Honestly, it was one of the better sounding games of the year, with a soundtrack that could easily be enjoyed outside of the gameplay. Gestalt's Demon Cinder is a good game that flirts with being a great one, and that's perhaps the most frustrating part of my experience with it. I see the potential for what this title could be with a better story, a bit more challenge, and a decent map, but you just won't get those things currently. Yet, for all its flaws, I had a good time playing it. The world itself is just so inviting that it was hard not to see it through to the end, and it didn't take all that long either. If you can get past some of its imperfections, Gestalt's Demon Cinder is a decent addition to your Metroidvania library. I'm gonna award this one the Bronze Genie Lamp of approval.
Invisible Ink.
This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.
In the fictional year 2074, governmental order has been upended by major corporations. In response to attacks, Invisible Inc., the espionage agency under your direction, takes on a series of missions to acquire resources in preparation for a final confrontation with those encroaching forces. As their chief tactician, to achieve this goal will require sending 2 of your premier secret agents into various spots on the world map with a limited number of hours before having to deploy for that final mission. If you're new to the genre, turn-based tactical strategy games play out in, well, turns. Each agent has action points spendable as a shared resource, either by moving across tile spaces of the level or using character abilities. After ending your turn, the enemy team gets their turn to do the same. Each level has 2 primary objectives. One example would be accessing a terminal or rescuing an imprisoned agent, and the other objective is to find the escape elevator of the building you're infiltrating. Scattered throughout are side missions, such as collecting credits via hacking terminals with the assistance of Incognita, the AI assistant who can also reprogram scouting bots, disable barrier lasers or surveillance cameras, and other neat tools as long as you have power, a resource that you gain in between each turn as well as collect on site. An alarm level is displayed in the corner, segmented into 5 pieces. Each passing turn, if a guard is alerted of your presence or hacking of a fixture that has daemons, such as malware, fills a segment, and once it's been filled completely, the alarm level increases, bringing with it additional obstacles to navigate, such as increased guard presence or re-engaging cameras that were taken out earlier. It creates this great tension knowing that every extra turn taken will result in more danger. Using action points each turn effectively, rationing power to hack terminals via Incognita, and deciding when to engage with enemies versus trying to sneak around them evoked similar feelings I had of Into the Breach. Every choice is important, and ultimately sets a stage for victory, or sets up a trap of your own making. Also, like Into the Breach, each round brings a limited use rewind feature, pulling back 1 turn in case you've realized what a catastrophic mistake was made. But it's downplaying the lethal options that allows other features of this genre to shine. Most tactical turn-based games I've played have combat as a core function. You don't want to engage with enemies without a plan, and it's critical to get the jump on enemies, but often part of the win condition is to lethally remove enemy pieces from the battlefield. In Invisible Inc., stealth is your North Star, with combat meant to disarm, not deal in death. Enemies have a vision cone that stops agents in their tracks if seen. If you're close enough to find a blind spot, an agent can duck undercover and set up an ambush attack. Using hacking to disable cameras and open new avenues to get around enemy patrols is satisfying. Walking up to a door, using a peek ability to see a patrol across the other room, and gauging whether you have enough action points to disarm and knock them out for a few turns is essential. If your agent is caught with no moves left to make, they can go out like a cool guy action hero with a quippy last word before being gunned down, left to wither unless another agent can reach and carry them to the end goal. Between missions, credits you've accumulated can be spent to upgrade stat categories that boost things like how an agent's total action points, amount of items that can be carried, or number of modifiers that can be installed. Additional agents unlock the more you play Invisible Inc., each with their own unique backgrounds, outlined in profiles, as well as special attributes to their character. Level structure is randomly generated, which in a lesser game would feel like a lazy way to extend game length. Here, the core gameplay is so structurally sound that it adds just the right amount of variation in each playthrough that can keep it fresh as you try another run with a different set of agents. All that said, there are a few minor quibbles worth addressing. Firstly, while the premise is well established at the start with well-written dialogue throughout, there isn't much story being told beyond setting up that premise. In between missions, the same prefabricated back and forth between the agency head, tech specialist, and Incognita are repeated, which works well enough, but feels perfunctory in a way that made me feel more like I was listening to someone else's story secondhand rather than it being mine. Also, in a few instances where I got into the 4th or 5th alarm level, there were regular instances of stuttering frame rate when the enemy turns initiated. I hadn't played this game on another console or PC, so I can't tell if it's Switch specific, but it's reminiscent of playing a game of Civilization in the later hours of a match when your computer's struggling to make the moves of all these pieces of the game board. Maybe something I wouldn't have noticed if I were a better super secret spy soldier. Invisible Inc., the stealthy turn-based tactics game originally released on PC in 2015, may have suddenly become my favorite release on the Nintendo Switch in 2020. Eschewing direct combat for a nearly purely stealth focus helps simplify without dumbing down the essential structure of what makes this genre great, and the efficiency that it demands for success is challenging but rewarding in ways that make me want to replay it over and over until I've scraped all the meat off that bone. If you find the XCOMs of the world alluring, but lament the random percentage chances of success combat that comes along with it, this is the game you've been looking for.
Voltar aqui pro... LOL liberou, LOL liberou.
Rotwood. Playing Rotwood makes you feel a primal sense of satisfaction from slaughtering every single grotesque beast you come across, and then pain when you get to higher frenzy levels and start dying a lot. This monster masher of a game is an action game, role-playing video game, fighting game, adventure game, early access game. Once again, Google loses points for not mentioning that it's a roguelike. And it was developed by Cly Entertainment, the same minds who gave us the existential dread of Don't Starve. So obviously it's gonna be weird and things are gonna try to eat your face. And the story is this. this. Everyone is peacefully chilling in town and then suddenly, boom, volcano erupts. This causes the surrounding land to become corrupted and spawn grotesque horrors barely comprehensible by the human mind. So now it's up to you and the rest of the hunters to fight your way through the Rotwood and uncover its mysteries, as well as slaughter literally everything in your way. That is until some fat thing with a suspiciously drawn chin comes along and sucks you up and spits you out. If you're here for some kind of thrilling narrative, you're barking up the wrong tree, buddy boy. The story isn't at the forefront of the game, and you'll probably think to yourself, why are we doing this again? It's enough to keep you moving forward, but the real reason to play the game is to slaughter anything unlucky enough to be in the room with you at the time. You can play Rotwood on a controller or mouse and keyboard, so pick your poison, I guess. And Rotwood is only playable on PC through Steam, however the developers have stated that more platforms will be considered throughout its early access. And lastly, here's the menu settings. For graphics, Rotwood has a unique hand-drawn style that's actually pretty detailed. It's no AAA game and it's only 2.5D, but it doesn't hurt your eyes to look at. No complaints here. For sound, it's great. All the weapon sounds and creature stabbings are satisfying. There's no voice acting in the game though, so if you can't read at a 4th grade level, you're kinda cooked. Here's the system requirements. It really doesn't need that much to run. You can probably use your grandma's $200 Walmart laptop that she uses to play solitaire on, if you use the lowest settings. Rotwood throws you into a procedurally generated dungeon crawl, meaning every run is different. The general loop of gameplay is enter one of several biomes via your helicopter. Once you
Esperar o LoL abrir, né? Porque o LoL tem essa mania de ficar se jogando na frente das coisas.
Breaking the circle would prevent the summoning.
Deu
A
círculo.
greater enemy, but also a greater reward. A compensation bestowed by the gods.
E aí, beleza?
Bem-vindo a Summoner's Rift.
Chego aí num pulo.
30 segundos para a liberação das tropas.
Não sou tão mole quanto pareço.
Caramba, o pulo que ela deu. Um dia o Caim acorda pra vida.
Mamãe sempre me disse que eu era grande pra minha idade.
Helicóptero, helicóptero.
Posso dobrar, mas não quebro.
Todo mundo sabe tudo.
Você pode tirar uma gosminha, não vai fazer falta.
Oi. Oi? Não, demorar ainda.
Nunca pulo o café da manhã. Acelera o pulo aí.
Um aliado foi eliminado.
Chego aí num pulo. devia colocar uma blusa. Identificar!
Oi, mano.
Alô? Oh, peraí.
Oi?
Você vai pra Ribeirão amanhã?
Que dia é hoje?
O quarto, né, Marinha?
Vou sexta.
Quarto, dia 10.
Eu vou sexta.
Ah, você vai sexta?
Isso.
De manhã?
Não sei, só sei que é sexta.
Mas você vai trabalhar no sábado, então?
Isso.
Então tá bom. O que eu ia falar pra você, que eu ia ver com a Sara, se ela quer vir sexta-feira pra cá.
Tá
Ficar
bom.
um final de semana com a gente. Se tá tudo bem pra você?
Ué, tudo bem.
Então tá bom. Tá? Beijo.
Beijo.
Mamãe sempre me disse que eu era grande.
Vai cair em breve.
Agora não seria nada mal.
Sua equipe destruiu uma torre. Invencível.
Bomba!
Todo mundo sabe tudo.
Lendário.
Errado, não devia nem ter ido.
Você pode tirar uma coisinha, não vai fazer falta.
Essa bot lane, velho.
Eu nunca pulo o café da manhã. Acelera o pulo aí.
Um aliado foi. Sua torre foi destruída.
E aí, beleza?
Um inimigo foi eliminado. Um aliado foi eliminado. Sua equipe destruiu um turno. aliado foi eliminado.
Não sou tão mole quanto
Um aliado foi eliminado. O inimigo foi eliminado. Um aliado foi eliminado.
Mamãe disse que eu era grande pra minha idade. Eu malho sim, obrigado.
neutralizado. Inimigo enfurecido.
Eu nunca pulo o café da manhã. Apenas mais um dia de trabalho. Acelera o pulo aí. E aí, beleza? Chego aí num pulo. Não sou tão bom quanto parece.
Hora de trocar a bota. Porque todo Rise é uma porcaria no meu time. Sempre, velho. O dano está em meu sangue, digo, em minha gosma. Mamãe.
Sua torre foi destruída. Sua torre foi destruída. Seu inibidor foi destruído. Um inimigo está dominando. Sua torre foi destruída.
Olha, isso que era vontade dos caras perder, pelo amor de Deus. Olha o Cartman traidor, tá jogando aqui. Volante. Oi. Tá. Beleza. Beijo.